So my first question to the panel is, describe how patient-centered care is used in your practice to shape patient outcomes, patient experiences and outcomes. And maybe we'll start with Evelyn.
Okay. So when I started in practice, I remember thinking, okay, patient-centered care. I'll just ask my patients, what's up? And then I realized I didn't have that many patients. So I had the opportunity to work in a key performance targets committee for a group called Patients Canada, which has actually changed quite a bit, but at that point, it was a national patient advocacy association. And so through collecting patient narratives and discussing them and finding trends, for various topics, there was a hospital group, an inpatient hospital group, a non-inpatient group as well. Things that kept coming up were having poor communication. Patients felt that they didn't understand if they didn't understand what the diagnoses were or what was going on with their care. They definitely didn't understand what the care plan was moving forward, that they weren't feeling included in their own decision making, and that their healthcare seemed really siloed, especially with complex care, that there was, your GP did this, your specialist did this, your speech and language pathologist just did this, but they didn't speak to each other. And so that was one of the first places that I really started to think about and be motivated to talk more to patients. I know people say this all the time, we're a profession that can actually speak to our patients longer. We see our patients more often. But that's what motivated me to actually send reports and call up medical doctors and discuss, whether over an email or talking to them if I had the chance. And that I found actually really did help. Maybe not change the healthcare, the health plan, but it did help patients feel a whole lot more included in their healthcare, which in and of itself really helped with their outcomes. So I guess I would say that including your patients, involving them in creating a care plan is really important. The other thing I wanted to say from a patient-centered care perspective is I often actually get asked by new grads, how do you chart that? So a little thing I wanted to say was you can use the patient-specific functional scale. It's essentially just a chart that has, I don't know if you guys use that here, but it's a chart that just has your patient's goals, and then each day in each appointment you sort of rank and out of 10 how far along they are in that, and that really does help inform, your treatment plan, homework, rehab, things like that. So I wanted to end this part with just saying that one of the sort of in-office patient-centered care things that I do is when I meet patients, is to say, ask me anything you want. If you're confused by anything, please don't hesitate. Just ask me. If I didn't explain it well, then tell me that. I don't have a problem with Dr. Google. If you want to look a bunch of stuff up and you're confused about it, please do, but then ask me about it. And that the patient's the boss, right? I'm not going to force a patient to do acupuncture just because I think that's going to be the best thing. If you are afraid of acupuncture, then let's find a different way. And that they're really sort of like leading the charge on their treatment plans.
Great, thank you. Dwight, patient-centered care. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the practice that I ended up purchasing was started in the late 70s. So I was coming into an established practice with established community roots, and office policies were dug in for the most part. They had worked out the kinks, and so that gave me a huge advantage. And the practice was very much focused on a mindset around patient-centered care, and that's the first point that I would suggest that you consider, regardless of the direction that you go, is patient-centered care is a team approach. So everybody has to be on side with that. So in our practice, if we get into the weeds here a little bit and talk about some of the things that we do to deliver on that, it starts with our mission statement, and that's to care for, educate, and inspire our patients in their journey towards optimal health and peak performance. And so we work with our front desk staff at the concept that healing starts at the front door. So what does that mean? Patient comes in, I don't want heads down, I want eye contact, I want the front desk to know who those people are and the care that they're receiving that day, and to deliver on that before we start a shift, we have a quick team huddle, a team meeting, and we look at the day sheet and who's seeing who today, and what are some of the details that the clinical team needs to know from the front desk, or what can the front desk do to help what can the clinical team do to help the front desk understand where that patient is in their journey and in their care. And so when the patient arrives, everybody's ready, and there's a good understanding of what needs to happen that day. And then in the treatment room, to deliver on that promise, we start with making sure we understand what the patient's goals are, and there's a constant conversation about where we're at in helping them achieve that, and the role that we play in working with their other members of their medical team to make sure that they're on track or not. And so patient-centered care is built on that trust, and if your patient can trust that you're going to guide them on a certain journey, and they can trust that you're going to let them know when they're not on track and when it's appropriate to be referred out or to bring in another opinion. That's in my mind what patient-centered care is all about, and it comes off as an authentic experience and a shared experience, and that drives the practice.
Thanks. Alana?
So patient-centered care, I understand it as putting the patient's best interest before anything else. And I think it's very, and I'm sure you guys were in the same boat, that it's very easy as a new grad to want to continuously book your patients in because you don't have a lot to start. So I think the key point here is recognizing when they need to see someone else, whether that be in conjunction with you or seeing another practitioner altogether. So I'm very fortunate that in one of my practices, we do work with a medical doctor. So I'm able to have that quick lines of communication so that they can see their medical doctor. And I am working with a massage therapist at my other clinic. So it is very easy to get them to see another practitioner if I feel like that's needed. But at my Tottenham practice, so another thing is to keep that continuity of patient-centered care throughout practices. So I'm working at 2 associateships, and they are run quite differently, but while that's going on, still being able to put the patient's best interest first. So in my Tottenham clinic, we actually have a room within the clinic, so I don't have a front desk staff. I am my own front desk staff. So when the patient, even from when they book in, the other chiropractor and we actually work on opposite days. So I'm in there Monday, Thursday, Saturday. She's in there Tuesday, Wednesday. So right when a patient wants to book in, we basically split patients by going, well, what day works best for you to come in? And that was something that really resonated with me, especially as Dr. Chapman was saying about finding someone who is a good fit for you, because that was something that I thought, this other chiropractor that wants to take me on really cares about her patients enough to say, hey, if coming in Mondays work best for you, I'm going to give that patient to Dr. Russo instead, as opposed to being like, well, you got the last new patient, so no go. You have to come in on Tuesday. So that's something that really resonated with me. So we start that right when they walk in the front door, and I think that patients find that it respects their time as well. And with that being said, I'm very active with communicating with my patients, especially through email. So I know, I remember being a student, a lot of chiropractors would say, oh, I always follow up with a phone call and calling. A lot of patients are on email now, and and some patients prefer to be called, but after every initial appointment, I ask them if they're okay with an email, and I send them a follow-up with like what their diagnosis is, what that means, their plan of management, if we were really getting into it. But with every patient, I'm always giving them their active care via email, giving them advice, and making it an open lines of communication if they have any questions for me. So a quick story is that in my first month or so of practice, in doing this, I had a patient who had discogenic low back pain, and we had tried acupuncture. And I followed up to say, hey, how are you doing? How's the back feeling? And she was like, actually horrible. And I was like, oh my goodness gracious, I'm losing my license. And I freaked out, and I talked to the other chiro, and I said, look, and so she actually in her email, let me clarify, said, my back doesn't feel good. I didn't like the acupuncture. Can we not do that next time? And I was like, she wants to sue me. And the other chiropractor was like, hold on a second. You basically just created an open line in which the patient not only doesn't want to not see you anymore, basically just dictated that she wants something taken out of her plan of management. So didn't you do like a fantastic job? And when you put it like that, I thought, oh, okay, I guess that did work out great, but I think that's the key point, is that if I hadn't followed up with her, maybe she wouldn't have told me, maybe she would have been too scared to, but it's always keeping that open line of communication and following up where you feel is best.
Thank you. Great answers. Patient-centered care. It means it's not clinic or clinician-centered care. And I think that's what I heard, that you have to listen to your patient, you need to engage with your patient. You need to measure success of your patient, and you need to be able to know what you know and what others may know better than you do. And that's where the referral comes in. Even if you're in private practice, it's important for you to build a network of health professionals around you. If they're not in your office, they're in your neighborhood. And so it's going to be important for you as you practice, whether you're in an interdisciplinary team or on your own, that you build that network.